So our session is about leading through action, and this is the focus on what we do as leaders, how we do it. So it's both the what and the how. Leaders are found everywhere throughout the organization. This is the Logistics Institute's point of view. Executives and directors lead by establishing corporate vision, developing new business opportunities, setting clear and workable goals, and in particular, inspiring workers to lead. Managers lead by operating well-managed departments and divisions, implementing efficient systems and processes, managing customer and supplier relations, and of course, building employee competencies through training. Supervisors lead by running integrated processes and operations, complying with standards, policies, and regulations, deploying operating resources on schedule, and developing teams and employee strengths. Frontline workers lead by doing the work on time, on spec, damage and error-free, maintaining resources and handling equipment, supporting a healthy and safe work environment, and of course, working collaboratively with others. The capacity to lead is built on the foundation of responsibility. Whatever our specific job or role, we are responsible in multi-dimensional ways. First, we're responsible for the whole organization. We're responsible for cross-functional process areas such as purchasing, transport, distribution. We're responsible for business units as such, whether it's a department or a business unit like a service center. We're responsible for teams, that is sourcing the team, scoping parts, scoping various aspects. It's the IT implementation group. We're responsible for ourselves as individual workers and people who are on career paths. We're responsible to, so on the one hand, we're responsible for all those things. We're responsible to lead the organization. Think strategically, think critically, develop strategies, initiate and manage change, develop corporate culture, support strategic objectives. We're responsible to manage performance across cross-functional process areas. So manage staff performance, manage function performance, manage business performance, manage finances, manage work processes. We're responsible to manage operations, whether in a business unit or otherwise. So customer relations, supplier relations, facility meetings, projects, and transactions of various kinds. We're responsible to develop people. We coach. We direct team members. We develop team process. We engage others. We influence others. And then ultimately, we're responsible to manage ourselves as individuals. It's about time. It's about work and the quality of work. It's about problem solving. It's about making decisions. It's about thinking creatively, learning to learn, and communicating. The type and level of responsibilities correlate to the jobs and the career paths we find ourselves on. So if we're at a strategic executive level, director level, we need to embrace strategic responsibilities that support the viability of the entire company, focused on interorganizational relationships along complex business and supply chains. As managers, we embrace structural responsibilities to support the viability of business units, focused on developing and managing vendor networks, distribution channels, in order to sustain the company's customer service strategies. As supervisors, we embrace process responsibilities that support the viability of those business processes, focused on integrating internal operations and procurement, inventory management, distribution, and transportation. Operations and frontline workers need to embrace tactical responsibilities that support the viability of transactions, focused on tactical transactional operations in buying, in inventory management and control, in order processing, in materials handling and management, in warehousing, in distribution, and in transportation. Leadership is fundamentally about change. This is the Logistics Institute's point of view. It's about envisioning the future different from the past, or the present, I should say. It's about developing organizational structures and implementing processes to achieve that willed future. It's about sustaining the strategic alignment of multiple cultural factors, such as a global outlook, a commitment to succeed, a willingness to collaborate and communicate. It's about having the right people with the right skills and talent to do the right jobs. There are two types of change, all right? There are reactive change, that is closing a performance gap in the organization. So trying to move the organization from what is to what should be with a high degree of urgency. This is the reactive change in terms of the fire on the platform. There's an urgency involved in this, and we need to control the direction of that change. But there's also proactive change, that is closing an opportunity gap. And that moves the organization from what is state to what could be state, with a low degree of urgency, less direction, and more influence oriented. And so in a reactive mode, the characteristics are urgency. There's a crisis. High dissatisfaction among the workers and the teams because of this crisis. There's a low resistance to change, right? There's a high level of support for change. There, as the change agent, we have the relevant information to move the organization forward, and that changes are clear. This is the direction forward. With a proactive situation, it's the persuasion approach. It's not a crisis. There's a high need to get commitment from people, so we have to engage in the change. Change is not clear. Change is complex. Change agents need support for their ideas from key constituents in order to make them stick. So those two types actually drive the kinds of actions we take. And so the capacity to lead requires three things. It's built on three pillars: influence, power, and action. And this session focuses directly on action. It isn't enough to talk about leadership. Leaders have to act. Leaders make decisions. Leaders accept the consequences of their decisions. And so leaders lead the situation. Not everyone is equally committed or competent. So let's recognize that as leaders, we face this as a potential block. We also recognize that people in positions of responsibility as leaders, whatever their title or position of authority, need to customize their leadership style to fit the behaviors of those being led. So while it is situational up to a point, we also have to recognize we have to have people to follow us. There's no such thing as a leader who has no followers. But how we get people to follow us becomes our litmus test as a leader, but at the same time, it's our challenge. Behaviors can be influenced by expectations. If a leader sets high expectations, realistic expectations, high performance will follow. If a leader sets low expectations, then low performance will follow. Now that sounds logical, but really we're talking about human behavior. So if we aim high, people will aim high with us. If we aim low, then people will be disinterested. We have to balance preferences, aligning personal capacities to lead, such as strengths, talents, and competencies, with the situations. We have to deal with what is the best action to take under the circumstances. There are no just best actions. There are multiple actions, often enough tailored to the circumstances. Effective leaders ask this question: what leadership style is best for the people I am leading in this specific circumstance, whatever my comfort zone is? So it's not about me, it's about getting the work done. And that requires others to be part of the process. What we've developed is a leadership style guide, because there are different kinds of leaders in terms of style. So there's a leader that is a visionary. There's a leader that is affiliative. There's a leader that is democratic. There's a leader that coaches. There's a leader that is a pace setter. Then there's a leader that is a commander. All right? A visionary provides direction, the big picture for an organization's future. That's how we wish to act. When to act depends on people buying into the new vision and when it is clear that that direction is needed. Results are, why do we do this? Motivates people toward a shared objective, shared goal. This is an inspirational kind of leadership. Affiliative, where the relationship, it's relationship-based, values people and their feelings. It's trying to meet people at a person as people. It's about healing rifts. It's about motivating in challenging times. And what we want here is loyalty and connectedness. If we choose a democratic style, it's about equal investment of all the parties in the work processes and decisions. It's about valuing people's input, not just valuing their values. All right? What is it that they can do? So it's when an employee buy-in is absolutely essential. That's when we use this kind of style. It's commitment through participation, where valuable contributions from employees are critical to the success of what we want to do. Coaching, it connects people's goals with the organizational goals. It's about professional development. It's to provide opportunities for growth, the individual growth along with the growth of the company. So people feel that their needs and career goals matter. And therefore, we retain employees. You know, it's that recruit retention issue. It's often enough easy to recruit people, although that in itself has its own difficulties, but retaining people is more difficult. So the alignment of their personal needs and their career goals with that of the company's goals and vision becomes integral to retention strategies. Pace setting, the goal orientation is in challenging times, especially if it's a time-sensitive circumstance. We've got to deal with this now. The responsive action is needed. We have to respond now. So what we want to get from people in pace setting is a response, and it's got to be immediate. And what we want to aim for is high-quality results. And in commanding, it mitigates risk. So the focus is on mitigating risk. That's what commanding should be about. It's about handling high-impact events, where values, the value is the quick resolution of the problem, both with people and with the situation. In a crisis or when dealing with problem performance, that's when we use this kind of style. And it provides a sense of calm by giving clear direction. So there's different kinds of styles. There's a guide that we can look at for use in the future in terms of the different styles we would bring to any kinds of situations in order to act as leaders. Leading through action to direct change. What does this mean? So in a reactive context, it's about facing the necessity of closing a performance gap in an organization. It's moving the organization, as I said earlier, from the what is state to the what should be state. It's dealing with a high degree of urgency and a more directive control process. And there are 3 change phases in this approach to change. One is to mobilize, the next is to move, the third is to sustain. So in the face of a crisis, what we want to do is mobilize people, move them forward, and sustain whatever result there is that comes out of it. Mobilizing is making the case for change. Moving forward is building momentum for change. All right? And then it's institutionalizing that change. On another level, it's building the capacity to change. So it's one thing to make the case, we also have to build the capacity for change. And those two parallel each other. If we want to build momentum to change, we also have to continue to build capacity. If we don't grow that capacity, then the momentum will stall. And we will never be able to get to the point of institutionalizing change. So mobilize, move, sustain. The decision context. Supply chain logistics decisions. Well, it's all about this. It's about value. It's about network strategies in terms of supplier relationship management. It's about channel design in terms of customer relationship management, focusing on the term relationship, not on the term supplier or customer. It's about procurement, asset or inventory management, and distribution transportation from a process and integrated process point of view. And of course, it's about the enablers, information systems, policies and procedures, facilities and equipment, and of course, organizational structure. So this is the context as supply chain logistics professionals in which we need to make decisions, in which we need to take action, not just verbalize those decisions. Because the competitive global landscape is as complex as this, where we plan, we execute, we control, and then we analyze in order to start all over again to plan, execute, and control in a continuous circle, continuous improvement circle, taking into effect multiple factors at each stage of this continuous improvement process, and in a global context, which is adding a level of complexity to the whole thing. It's the pursuit of excellence, where we have to deal with external forces and internal capabilities. And what's interesting about this is we're talking about capabilities. So this is what we have to be capable of doing from an internal operational point of view. External forces are the things we need to deal with, both in terms of risk and resilience. So risk and resilience in external contexts, capabilities in internal context. And this is a roadmap to the pursuit of excellence as supply chain logistics practitioners and professionals. So what are some of the decision roadmaps? The change, position, the continuous improvement roadmap. Well, a continuous improvement roadmap looks like this. We analyze, we plan, we act, we assess. And in this constant movement, this constant circle, if you will, of going from analysis to planning to acting to assessing what the impact of the act is or action is, back to analysis, to plan, to act yet again, to assess, so on and so forth, this never stops. So positioning change within this circle becomes extremely important. Because what this means from a process point of view is we discover first, we analyze, we design, we align, and then we implement. So this is breaking out that continuous improvement circle into a series of process steps. Discover, analyze, design, align, and implement. And of course, there are different things we do at each stage in this process. Right? For discovery, we define the business model. Analysis, we map out the current processes. Again, the mapping situation, a process map. This is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Of the current state, because we're going to lead to improvement, obviously. Always good to give it a visual picture. We define the future processes. So we do a value map over against the process map. This is where we are now and the value we deliver. Where do we want to be from a value point of view going into the future? We align the to-be processes to the ERP functionality. Now we're using technology as a way to align all of these processes. ERP is an enabler. It's not the way in which business delivers value. It enables us to deliver value. And then, of course, implementation is taking the plan, aligning it to our efforts, and acting with success. At another level, discovery is about identifying the basis of competition. So let's go down that road. So define the business model, identify the business competition, identify key performance metrics, identify our processes, conduct process segmentation, identify the ERP system functionality that would enable us to work better, work more seamlessly, if you will, identify the processes to be analyzed and aligned. Under analysis, we create our map. We identify the process inputs and outputs, as well as the throughputs. We capture the process system disconnects, and there's the important area for development. Somebody the other day said white space. This is the white space where creativity takes place. Collect data to measure impact. Identify the quick hit opportunities and the ROIs on those quick hits. And that's under the analysis stage. At the design stage, where we begin to define the future, we define performance measures that go with that future. We group the disconnects into alignment project opportunities. In other words, it's one thing to discover the disconnects. Well, what do we do with them? And how do we align our solutions to the future and the future output in our process mapping? Evaluate those future processes over against the ERP functionality. Again, ERP is going to enable us to succeed. It isn't the totality of our success. Align, under the alignment stage, of course, we align the 2B to functionalities. We determine high-level ROI for these alignment projects. It's always got to have that metric. What's the ROI in this? We have to build improvement portfolio and then gain a consensus among all of these stakeholders to set priorities. Just because we come up with a great design doesn't mean it all has to be done at the same time, nor does it have to be done by everybody. But we should get buy-in from the stakeholders. So when we plan our alignment efforts, we deploy our alignment teams. Now we begin to act, right? The lower level ERP training specific to process optimization. So whether we use ERP, and I would hope we would, depending on how large our organization is, we have to begin to train people. And it's about process optimization. Then we track and measure our results, and then we go once again into a continuous improvement mode. All right? So this gives us a map and a guide on continuous improvement action. We must recognize from the beginning that the change horizon is both strategic and complex. And it involves so many different milestones along the way. It is about complexity. So planning, capability development, delivery, and improvement are the end points. That's where the sun rises. But to get to sunrise, not sunset, we hope, but to get to sunrise, we have to take into account so many different factors. And they have to be dealt with as milestones along the way. We can't skip a milestone. Anybody who is into process thinking knows that you have to follow the process. The minute you skip a step or a stage in the process, you also prevent yourself from succeeding. You may have to go back and redo it anyway. We go from CI planning to capability planning. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to give you a series of roadmaps, and each one is a different facet of activity that we need to look at as part of a fairly complex change process. So we went from continuous improvement to say, well, how do we build capability? Well, this is a capability roadmap. How do we begin to develop, enhance our capability to succeed? All right? We begin with the why, we move to the what, we move to the how, we move to the to-do. Why we're doing it is scoping. What we're doing is direction. How we're doing it is through the roadmap, which gives us direction not only direction, but actions to take. And then the action itself is, what do we do at each stage? The scoping involves mission and strategy, stakeholder drivers, and then the landscape itself. What's interesting in that 3 is the stakeholder drivers. We have to assess, we have to ask various stakeholders, what's driving them? Why would they be part of a CI, continuous improvement process? Why would they support change? But at the same time, what is their capability to contribute to the success of the change process? In other words, what is their stake in this? Then, of course, we gather all that information and we create a capabilities driver approach to things. This is how we're going to move forward. We then look at our challenges, objectives, and targets. Then we program and service architecture. We build an architecture around what it is we need to do, what direction we need to take. Then we create a driver map in order to make that, bring that architecture into reality. And then we look at the capability element, evolution, innovation, and the scoreboards around that. Now, I don't know if you've ever built a house, but if you use an architect, the architect will tell you the first thing you do is you design the roof. You don't design the basement. You don't design the walls. You start by designing the roof. Then you design all the infrastructure in order to hold up the roof. So that is similar to what we're talking about. We're talking about creating an architecture. Then we're talking about developing a business plan or a development plan or a structure plan. You know, we'll call it here the driver plan, which then deals with various elements, including innovation scoreboards, so that we know what it is we're building. Then we take the action plan, and that's like building or digging the foundation. And then we look at the investment. What is this going to cost us? And of course, what's the risk roadmap at the same time? What is going to be the problem if we put the electricity here, the plumbing there, and so on and so forth, which in building a building is what that is all about. Once we get into that, then we start looking a little deeper, and we dig a little deeper, and we say, so we're talking about different stakeholders. Different stakeholders have different agendas. And so those different agendas are really about business and sector differentiation. Not only do we have different opinions, but we also have different things that we do, depending on what sector we work in and what group is involved. So if we come out of an R&D sector, or if we come out of a service sector, or if we come out of an e-commerce sector, each of these represents a roadmap, if you will, on sector differentiation. These would be the hot buttons, the important issues that each one of these sectors face. And so developing a roadmap for each one of these sectors, we look at the know why, know what, know how, and what to do. So it's taking that capability map, stretching it out, and then specifying within a sector context what that might or might not mean. So if we look at service alone, which would be any industry and government roadmap that would be built, we look at the industry structure as a whole. And what is our position within that sector in terms of our competitors as well as our other operations? What are the customer drivers? What's the demand factor here? And what is the industry direction? What's happening with everybody else? When we look at the know what within a service group, it's so what are the technological and technical challenges, not just technology, but there are all kinds of technical issues. What is the business process architecture? What are the trends, objectives, and constituents? And discontinuities as well. And what are the learning targets that we need to aim for? When we look at the know-how, now we're looking at technology. One is technical, the other is technology. And how do we use technology in order to enable us to be successful? What are the alternatives to technology? Because not all technology is worth doing. And then, of course, what's going to be the cost involved in all that? And then the how-to is, so what are we going to do? What are we going to invest in? What standards are we going to establish? Of course, what KPIs are we going to deal with? And of course, there's the risk roadmap. And that's just looking at a service sector. The others you can look at on your own. And so now we dig a little deeper. All right? We look at the specific needs of creating a customer-centric business culture. So we've gone from CI, now we're dealing with customer-centric under a CI, continuous improvement umbrella. And once again, we have a process that we map out. Discover, engage, ignite, stick, and then of course fortify. So different language, but similar ideas. Again, analysis, plan, change, implementation, embedding the change into the organization, and then of course maintaining that change. So once again, it's looking at the analysis, it's build the business case for a customer-centric culture. What is the high-level culture assessment process? How do we measure the level of customer centricity? Using a market response index. So what we're doing is creating a market response index for ourselves. How do we create customer culture engagement council? So we might want to bring in some stakeholders within our own customer base and say, so guide us, help us, give us insight. On the engagement side, it's reviewing the vision, values, strategy for customer focus. So now we're realigning ourselves on a customer basis. We create customer centricity improvement plans. We develop leadership engagement and buy-in around customer value. We deliver leadership customer immersion programs. That's a mouthful. But when you think about it, it's about customer immersion programs that then will direct our leadership capability. It's developing leadership communication programs themselves so that leaders communicate with themselves, among themselves, around customer-centric approach to business. And it's about creating a culture, not just doing a business. It's a totally different way of thinking how we're going to conduct our business. And so when we inspire and implement that change, we conduct the strategic alignment and the skills workshops. We have to bring people up to snuff to be able to do that. We immerse ourselves in a customer immersion program for all functional areas within the company. Customer-centric leaders' best practices now become normative. We train people, we train trainers, we create ambassadors of our people in terms of our relationship with our customers. They are the front line of customer relationships. We strengthen customer-centric processes in several phases, and then we do market responsive index and monitor our progress. And then we go through this as a sticking process, and that is really refreshing, reiterating, reconfirming, building collaboration, continuing to improve, making sure that people do what we expect them to do from a customer-centric business culture perspective. And then, of course, maintaining is monitoring, revitalizing, making sure that we actually measure profit over against the customer centricity that we've created as our culture. In other words, it has to have an ROI. If it doesn't, then why are we doing this? There's got to be money involved. This isn't doing it because we like it. We're doing it because we need to do it. We should be doing it because it's our business to do it. And so when we look at customer relationship management, so now we're drilling even further into the heart of the matter, we look at the building blocks around customer relationship management, CRM. Where's the vision around CRM? What's the strategy that is specifically CRM? What is the experience of our relationship with customers? And that itself is interesting because we have to be honest here. If it's a negative experience, let's be honest and admit it, because that's where we begin to learn to change, by seeing the negative experiences so that we can improve them and change them into positive ones. Then we look at collaboration internally, collaboration externally, even with some of our key customers. If it's a B2B relationship, that's one thing. If it's a B2C relationship, it's a little bit more difficult to enter into a collaborative modality with consumers. We look at our processes in order to support a CRM strategy. We look at information so that we monitor what's going on. We use technology to enable us to do this better. And of course, then we end up with our KPIs. So we go back to the beginning in order to revisit our experience, revisit the collaboration stage, the process stage, the information stage, and so on and so forth. So it's a continuous cycle. So we've gone from customer-centric as a business to customer relationship management. How deep can we go on all this? Well, now we talk about a customer relationship management within the term of specific needs. Now we're beginning to break down the CRM from a needs point of view. All right? And there are 8 building blocks to that CRM. All right? From a needs point of view. In other words, if things are not going well, what is the process of reversing that and make things go better? Well, here's an 8-step approach, which actually mirrors what I just said, but provides further detail on what should be emphasized from a specific needs point of view. All right. When we go from there, we go into problem solving, because obviously when we do the analysis and we see there are problems that have arisen, so how do we solve those problems? Now we're getting into very specific details in our roadmaps and the kinds of actions that we need to take as we dig deeper and deeper into the action mode. Problem solving. There's an entire roadmap to problem solving. And that problem solving has multiple tools involved. Not necessarily stages, but tools. All right? There's the timeline. There's the action line. There is the is and is not line. This is the way it is. This is the is not the way it is, or what we would like it to be. But guess what? It's not working that way. There's the FEMA. What are the risk factors here? All right, and the actions that we take under a FEMA. So it's about the problem definition. That's where it begins, and there are multiple steps that we take and tools that we use. All right, then there is the reset course, or the root causes, I should say, where we begin to identify the root causes of our problems. How do we get to the heart of the problem? And then from there, what is the corrective action that we need to take? How do we reset in order to benefit from what we learned about the risks and the problems, and then move forward in order to take corrective action, only to recognize that there will be other problems that occur. As a matter of fact, the more problems we solve, the more problems actually occur. And the better we get at solving problems, the better we get at identifying what some of those problems are and moving more quickly in order to solve them. It's not that the problems will go away. We become better at handling them. That's the point. And then we get to specific needs within a problem-solving mode. So once again, we're digging deeper. The onion is being peeled. We're getting to the core of the onion. And in this instance, there are multiple symptom areas that problems tend to be grouped into. There's motion, leadership, people management, problem solving itself and the ability to solve problems. There's overproduction or overprocessing. There's transportation and handling. These are different symptom areas. But just focusing on one, in this particular example, it's the leadership symptom. So leaders are problems. I don't have to tell you that. We all know that. But as leaders, we actually create problems. One aspect of that problem is too much delegation. not really taking on a lot of the work. All right? Too much delegation on the one hand, let others do it. Actually, too much command and control is the opposite of that. No one's going to do this but me. So there's that first set of problems. The other is annual strategy planning events that fail to achieve anything. Oh, let's all get together to map this out and deal with this. We'll go on a leadership retreat, only to end up not doing anything effective or worthwhile. All right? The senior management vision does not actually match the organization's activities. Isn't this great? This is what we want to do. This is what our vision says we do. Yet at the same time, we do nothing that supports that whatsoever, and the disconnect between what we do and what we say we are doing. Leadership team is not always aware of the problems within their organization. All right? The fifth dimension is making the right noise, but not backing it with action. We have to do this. Yeah, okay. Well, what is it that this is? All right. The long lead time to achieve improvements. We have to do this, we have to do it now, but now might actually be sometime next year. All right. Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. How do we handle this more effectively? The exclusion of lower level employees from the strategic planning process. Engage the people who actually do the work, and you might actually have a strategy that works. If you don't do that, well, it's nice to have a strategy, but it has nothing to do with the work that we do. And then, of course, little correlation between strategy and continuous improvement. We want to be better, we want to be better and better, and then we want to be better and better and better, but actually the work that we do has nothing to do with, and even our strategy has nothing to do with our desire to be better in terms of continuous improvement. So, improving results, a Six Sigma roadmap. So here's a way in which we get better. By asking critical questions, defining specific goals, and then using tools and techniques in order to improve. Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. We'll look at the define piece primarily. We'll look at the critical questions piece. The others we can look at another time. So under define, why is this important to the business and our customers? Why should we do this to begin with? That, by the way, is a very key question. If we don't ask that question, then I think we're starting on the wrong foot. In other words, why should we do this to begin with? Why should we do anything to begin with? Why should we improve? Why should we change? Improve I can understand, but change for the sake of change is nonsense. What do we measure as part of the change? What is the current baseline? Do we have any idea what we actually do? Analyze. What are the root causes of any problems that we have? Have we actually dug into those problems to find out what's going on here? It's one thing to say it's not working. It's something else to say, why is it not working? Improve. What actually needs to change? Do we need to change everything? Or do we need to change everything all at once? Or do we need to change incrementally and start with the low-hanging fruit? Or the most critical issues, depending on which one is important. And then, of course, the control is how will we maintain that improvement? It's one thing to say we have to change, we must improve. We have to have an endpoint here. How are we going to maintain that improvement? There's nothing worse than going through the whole process and have no sense of how we're going to support it in the end. Transition plans. It's one thing to have a plan, but how do you actually go from analysis to implementation? How do you actually make things happen? All right? We have a design plan. We have a design to build plan. We have a transition plan. And we have a business support plan. This, again, think of building a house. The design plan, it starts with the roof. Design to build actually does the architecture to support the roof. All right? The transition is you start by digging the basement. All right? And then, of course, the final point is you have a house. Now this has multiple dimensions to it, and I'm just going to highlight several features. One is we have to define change from a design plan, design to build, transition, and business support perspectives. It's not just change. It's change from these perspectives. It's cultural change from a design to build, transition, and business support perspective. It's organizational change. And notice the order. Change, generally. Cultural change is the next most important. Organizational change is the next most important. And then, of course, process and technology change is the next most. Then training. How do we actually get people to understand what we're doing so that they're capable of doing it? So capability change. And then, of course, communications. Let the world know, let everybody in the organization know this is what we're doing. But from a design plan to a design to build to a transition to a business support process. Following those 4 steps is critical to success. Not just coming up with a design or change plan and say, let's make it happen. Whoa, wait a minute, let's break it down into elemental parts. It's that adage, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. This is the 1 bite at a time within a structure. And ultimately, our change actions need to be SMART. If you've never encountered this acronym, SMART, this is probably one of the most important things that we need to do from any point of view, any planning point of view, any action point of view. And that is our plans, our actions must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART. Not just any old thing. We've got to position it as specific. Who, what, when, where, why. Measurable. How do we demonstrate and evaluate the extent to which the goal has been met? Achievable. What is the action-oriented verb that we use in making this happen? Relevant. How is it aligned to our business objectives? Time-bound to include deadlines, dates, and frequency. If we don't put that in specific terminology, if we don't identify those elements in detail, in numerical detail, when I say time, I'm not just saying, oh, maybe by. No, date X. If we don't do that, then we're all over the map and we never get anything done. Decisions, methods, strengths, and weaknesses. A decision model, strengths and weaknesses. What we're dealing with here is something that is relatively new, and most of us do not engage in this. And it's called rational decision making. This is often enough a mathematical approach, but it isn't just that. This is a decision making process that is multi-stepped. It's about making choices between alternatives that follow an orderly path from problem identification through to solution, favoring a logic, objectivity, analysis over subjectivity, and insight. Most of us use rational decision making. What most of us don't use is what is called irrational decision making. And you say, why would I do anything irrational? Well, let me explain what this is, what that is. This is a decision model that most of us use. All right? It's problem solving 101. Identify the problem, gather the information, analyze the situation, generate possible options, evaluate the feasibility of those options, reach a consensus, choose 1, 2, or 3 of those, and develop a plan and implement. So there it is. It's the collaborative approach to decision making. It's rational decision model. The weaknesses of that is you actually end up with a bounded rationality. What do we mean? We're going to go after the solution that fits. Notice the that fits. We bound it within a situation. It may not be the best solution at all, but it fits the situation. It becomes too subjective. And we end up being satisfiers, or we end up with a satisfactory decision, which is not necessarily the one that will be the best. I'm satisfied. We've gone through the 8 steps. We're happy with this decision. Yeah, but it may be too narrow. So it's got weaknesses, rational decision model. The other decision model is non-rational. Actually, I called it irrational. That's not quite real. It's not crazy. Irrational is crazy. Non-rational decision making is the pursuit of optimal, not just acceptable decisions. It's a whole different way of handling issues. It's about maximizing, using various methods, it's heuristic methods here, and in order to come up with a decision in the face of uncertainty, because the problem is not clearly defined. And it's about which choices or whether we should take any choice and that will lead to a benefit or a harm. The heuristic methods that are identified here are experience. These are non-quantifiable. So experience, intuitive judgment, gut instinct, and common sense. You can't put numbers to that stuff. And so this is non-rational decision making, which I would suggest we use anyway, despite the fact we don't have a name for it. Yes, we do all the analysis. Yes, we do all the problem solving. Yes, we follow the 8 steps. Yes, we come to a decision. But there's a part of us that says, my gut says we should not go down this road. I can't quantify it. I can't tell you rationally why we can't do this, but my gut says we should not do this. My experience says this could cause bigger problems than solve the one problem we're looking at. This is a decision model that most of us, or most MBA programs, would stay away from because it can't quantify it. Those MBA programs that actually pursue optimal rather than acceptable decision making actually focus on this. This is that fuzzy kind of stuff. I'm not going to go through the heuristic drivers because it becomes fairly complex in trying to get this across. But actually, the key pieces are emotion as a factor in making the decision. You can't quantify emotions. We have them. What we are asked to do is to make trade-offs, not to come to a one decision solution. We have to look at the tolerance that we have for risk, because the decision we may make is highly risky and not assured. All right? And these are kinds of decisions we need to look at in terms of deep uncertainty. We just don't know what the problem is. We don't know where to go, but we know something has to be done. My guts tell me. But my guts are also not telling me what it is we have to do. How do we handle that? So it's about structuring our decision. It's about looking at history, case generation, if you will. It's about developing a scenario. What's the story here? And then, of course, doing trade-off analysis. This is our story, and then we have to come up with a robust strategy that is really trade-off based. If this, then that. If that, then this. This is a whole approach that really is about telling a story. It's about storyboarding. It's about visualizing. It's about best guess, if you will. It's about looking at multiple views of the future. It's about a robustness rather than an optimal approach to things. All robust approaches describe trade-offs rather than provide a strict ranking of alternative options. And a problem solving is, here are all my options, now I'm going to rank them. And then I'm going to choose the top one. In this instance, you're going to say, all of these have validity. Now, how did I trade off one against another? Keeping all of them as part of the decision, not eliminating any. And then, of course, it's about vulnerability and response option analysis. Where are the hot points? Where am I vulnerable? How do I respond to that? Because everything that I'm dealing with is uncertain. Why is this important for us as supply chain logistics people? Well, it's because of this. The impact of big data, the pursuit of excellence, and of course, all of the issues in between that, which is the robust versus the responsive supply chain, Yossi Sheffi's approach. All of these require, one requires contextual intelligence. That's big data. Applied innovation is part of the pursuit of excellence. And of course, agile strategies are part of how we redesign supply chains. All of these require RDM, all right? The random approach to decision making. And why? Because this is reality. This reality is complex, random complexity, the what if, what is possible, anything goes approach the way business actually runs, in particular supply chain logistics, in terms of global trade. And what we need to be is robust in our decision making, because uncertainty is our context, because vulnerability is what we really should be looking at. Risk is what we need to assess. Resilience is the strategy that we need to support with the support of robust decision making in that circle. So the decision strengths, 8 steps to become personally more resilient are these. And that is accept change. It's reality. Become a continuous leader, continuous improvement leader. Take charge. Don't be afraid. Find your sense of purpose, your sense of purpose. Pay attention to self-identity in this whole process. Cultivate relationships. Reflect on what you're doing and what others are doing with you, and increase your skill capability to have results. Because the same old doesn't work anymore. It's a whole new world.